Hi everyone, Jai Hind and welcome to the platform of StudyIQ IAS in English. My name is Bhavar Singh Srohi. I'm ex-NT 115th course and also qualified civil services in 2012. And I welcome you on the platform. Now in this session, we'll be talking about all these, 20 animals which had been or they went extinct when it comes to the last 200 years. And this was because of the human presence or because of the things that had been done by the human beings. Now, over here, this is what we are talking about. This is about the sixth mass extinction event that is right now going on. And it is not a future event that you must have or you must have this thing in your mind. Now, when it comes to the natural extinction rate, you can see that it is about 1 to 5 species that becomes extinct per year across the geological history. But when it comes to the current rate, so you can see that the estimation is about 1,000 to 10,000 times that is above the natural rate. And ultimately that indicates that we are going through the mass extinction event right now. That is the sixth mass extinction event. There were 5 previous mass extinctions on the earth. Like for example, in Cretaceous Paleogene period, that was nearly about 66 million years ago. So there was the mass extinction that have wiped out all the dinosaurs from the surface of the earth. It may happen that this mass extinction, this will wipe out the human race as well. Now, over here, this is the sixth mass extinction event that we are talking about, which is completely human caused because there is the habitat loss or the habitat destruction that is happening. There is overexploitation, the climate change and invasive species and the pollution that is deriving lots of species getting extinct on the surface of the earth. Now, when it comes to the term that is biodiversity, that was coined by Walter G. Rosen in 1985, but later on it was popularized by E.O. Wilson in his book Biodiversity in 1988. Now, when it comes to all the species, they could face extinction by mid-21st century. It is about 30 to 50% if the current trends will continue, and that is by a report that was published in 2019. Now, these are the 20 species that we are talking about in this session. The first species is the passenger pigeon. Basically, it was once the most numerous bird in North of America and possibly the most numerous bird on the earth as well. And ultimately, the bird or the passenger pigeon, it was the medium-sized pigeon with a slate blue head that you can see over here, the wrist red breast, as well as the long tapered tail that was there. Now, the species that was numbering in the billions in 1800, it was functionally extinct in the wild by 1890s. And the last known wild passenger pigeon was shot in Ohio in 1900. There was Martha, which was the last surviving individual which died at the Cincinnati Zoo on September 1, 1914. And ultimately, the status of this bird, it was changed to extinct. The second species that we are talking about is the Tasmanian tiger or thylacine. Now, it was neither a tiger nor closely related to any of the living canine, but it was a marsupial, a pouched mammal that evolved in isolation on the island of Tasmania after becoming extinct on the mainland Australia roughly nearly about 2,000 years ago. Now, its jaws, they could open at extraordinary angle of nearly 90 degrees. And here, it is very important that the female carried the young in the backward facing pouch that was there. Just like we have the kangaroos that they carry their babies in the pouch. As well as when it comes to the last known wild individual, it was captured in 1993 and it was sent to the Hobart Zoo. Efforts were there to de-extinct the thylacine using the ancient DNA and the gene editing technology that are currently underway for the de-extinction or to revive the thylacine. The next species that had been become extinct is dodo. Basically, dodo, we remember dodo with the various phrases that we use, like dead, dumb as dodo. All right. So at the same time, let me tell you that dodo was no dumb bird that was there. But at the same time, when it comes to dodo, it was a large flightless bird that lived on the island of Mauritius in the Indian Ocean. And it was roughly 1 meter tall and weighed nearly around 10 to 18 kilograms. And the wings were vestigial. They were not actually the wings, or they could not support the flight of the bird. It was too small. The wings were very small to flight. At the same time, they were used only for balance and display. The beak was large, hooked, and robust, and the Dutch sailors, they first encountered the dodo in 1598. And by 1681, within the next 83 years of the first contact, the dodo bird was completely gone. And again, the status was changed to extinct by the IUCN. Now, the next species is the Steller sea cow, or it is closely related to the dugong, that is the sea cow that is found in India, and it was the largest member of the order Sirenia. Now, over here, the sea cow, that is the dugong that I'm talking about, it also belongs to the same order. And George Wilhelm Steller, he was the German naturalist for whom the animal had been named. He first described it in 1741 during the Vitus-Bering Second Kamchatka expedition. The meat was reportedly palatable, as well as their fat was useful for the oil lamps, and that is why these were hunted down, and the food source was there because of the long sea voyages, and that was the reason for the extinction of the Steller's sea cow within 27 years of Steller's first description. By 1768, the species was extinct, and you can see the impact. Then next comes the species that is Baiji, that is Yangtze River Dolphin, which is basically was the freshwater dolphin endemic to Yangtze River that is there in China. And it has survived in Yangtze for nearly about 20 million years ago. By the time the scientists, they launched the systemic survey to find out or find it in 2006, it was almost certainly, it was almost gone. Now, when it comes to this, so there had been the construction on the Yangtze River. There was Gezua Dam that was completed in 1981, then Three Gorges Dam as well that began operations in 2003. Now, these dams, they have disrupted the flow of Yangtze River, as well as the hydrology and the migration routes were blocked. And thereby, that was the reason that the Yangtze River Dolphin, or Baiji, it became extinct. The single unverified sighting was reported in 2007, and it had been classified as critically endangered, possibly extinct by the IUCN. The next species that we are talking about is the Pyrenean ibex. It is also known in the Spanish as bucado. It holds the distinction of that there is no other extinct animal shares, and that is that it was revived. It was brought back to life, however, very briefly, and that is, you can say that it became extinct twice. All right, in the wild first, and again when it was revived, it was again it was extinct. Now, it was on the 30th of July 2003 that a cloned bucado was born at a veterinary facility that is located at Zaragoza in Spain. But it just lived for 7 minutes and it died because of the collapse of the lungs. Now, over here, the decline of the Pyrenean ibex, it began in the medieval period when the hunting was basically there, and it was the pressure was there from the European nobility that reduced the population across the range that were there. Also, the conservationists, they have captured the last known female named Celia in 1999, whose DNA fragments and the tissue culture had been taken for the revival of the Iberian, the Pyrenean ibex. The next species is the West African black rhinoceros. Now, it is basically, or it was the subspecies of the black rhinoceros that once ranged across the Sahel region of the Central West Africa. Now, it was declared extinct by the IUCN in 2011. Now, here it is very important that when it comes to rhinoceros, so the horn commands extraordinarily high prices in the illegal wildlife trade that you will see, primarily because of the demand that is there in the parts of East Asia where it is used for the traditional medicine, and also in Yemen as well, where it is historically, or it was historically used to make the ornamental dagger handles. Now, all the living rhinoceros, it's very important that all the living rhinoceros which are there species, they are either endangered or they are vulnerable right now. The next species is that went extinct is Pinta Island tortoise, or the Lonesome George. Now, Lonesome George was the last known Pinta Island tortoise, and one of the most famous individual animals that you will see in the 20th century. Now, the last, or the Lonesome George, it lived at the Charles Darwin Research Station on Santa Cruz Island in Galapagos for more than 4 of the decades. Now, it was on 24th of June 2012 that his keeper found him dead in his exclosure. And it is estimated that this tortoise, it has lived for around 110 to 112 of the years. Now, the next species that went extinct is quagga. Now, when it comes to quagga, it was subspecies of the plains zebra, that is Equus quagga, that once roamed in large numbers when it comes to the Karoo and the southern Free State regions, what is now called as the south of South Africa. Now, the name actually comes from the Khoi word, that is, or that approximately, that is approximated the sound of the animal's call, and that is quagga. Now, the last wild quagga that was killed sometime in the 1870s, although the exact date is not established, and the last known captive individual, a mare held at the Artis Majesta Zoo in Amsterdam, it died on 12th of August 1883. Now, there is the Quagga project that had been launched or founded in South Africa in 1987. Basically, it is about the revival of the quagga again. Then when it comes to the next species that we have lost is the great auk. Now, when it comes to great auk, it was the original penguin, or you can say that it was basically the first bird, or the bird which to which the word penguin was first applied by the European sailors. Now, when it comes to great auk, it was the last large breeding colony was in the North Atlantic, was on the Funk Island that is located over here of the Newfoundland, which was destroyed by the hunters in the late 18th century. Now, over here, the last two confirmed great auks, they were killed on LD Island on 3rd of June, 1844, and since then, they had been extinct. Now, the next species that we lost is the Caribbean monk seal. Now, over here, the Caribbean monk seal was the only seal species that was native to Caribbean Sea and the Gulf of Mexico. Now, it was declared extinct by US NOAA, that is National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, in 2008, following that there were no sighting of the monk seal since 1952. Now, there are the two related species that survive right now. There is the Hawaiian monk seal and the Mediterranean monk seal. Both are right now termed, or they are in the critically endangered category when it comes to the IUCN status. Then comes the golden toad. Now, it was the first species whose disappearance was directly attributed to the climate change. Very important. And when it comes to the golden toad, so it lived in the single cloud forest location, a roughly 10 square kilometer area that was around the Monteverde in the mountains of Costa Rica. And it was found nowhere else in the world. Now, it was last seen on 15th May 1989. It is also very important that when it comes to the golden toad, so it is frequently cited in the news as the first documented casualty of the 21st century climate disruption, although it was long gone, or it was disappeared even before that in the 20th century itself. Now, the next species that we have lost and is extinct is the Javan tiger. The Javan tiger is basically the subspecies of the tiger that is endemic to the Indonesian island of Java. The last confirmed sighting was in 1976 in the Meru Betiri Forest Reserve in the eastern Java, and its closest living relative is right now the Sumatran tiger, which is again critically endangered with fewer than 400 of the individuals which are remaining in the wild. And this is again a species that we have lost because of the human action. Now, the next species is booble hartebeest. The booble hartebeest was the northernmost subspecies of the hartebeest, a large African antelope that was found. Now, the last confirmed wild population were in Algeria, and the last known individual, a female which was held at the Paris Zoo, it died at around 1902, and this is also a species that we had lost. Now, the next species is the laughing owl. The laughing owl was a medium-sized owl that was endemic to New Zealand and named for its call. The last confirmed specimen was found dead at the Blue Cliff Station in Canterbury of the South Island, and ultimately that was in July 1914. And this is the laughing owl that is again extinct. Now, the next is the Schomburgk's deer. Now, this was the large deer that was native to the central plains of the Thailand. Now, it was named after Sir Robert Herman Schomburgk, the British consul in the Bangkok, who first brought specimens to the attention of the Western science in 1860s, and that is why this was named after him. Now, the last confirmed wild individual was killed in 1932, and also the last known captive animal. It was held at the temple in Bangkok, and it was reportedly killed for medicine in 1938, and thereby we lost this deer as well. Now, when it comes to the other species, it is the tool-ache wallaby. Now, two-leg wallaby was once described as the most elegant as well as beautiful of all the Australian wallabies that are there. Now, it occupied the open grassy plains and the low scrubland of the southeastern South Australia and also the small area of the adjacent Victoria. In 1923, the conservationists they attempted to capture the remaining animals which were there and relocate them to a protected area on the Kangaroo Island. But what happened? That of all the 14 animals that were captured, so 10 of them, they died from the stress and injuries that was during the attempt, and the rest of the 4, they were released in the wild. And the last confirmed sighting of a wild two-leg wallaby was in 1924, and the last captive individual, it died in 1939, and since then they had been extinct. Now, the next species is Zanzibar leopard. Basically, Zanzibar leopard was a subspecies of the leopard which is found only on Unguja. That is the main island of Zanzibar archipelago that is off the coast of Tanzania. Now, most wildlife biologists, they believe that the last individuals, this died sometimes in 1990s, but exact date or the exact sightings are not available. Now, again, when it comes to the another species, that is Pauli, that is the black-faced honey creeper. And Pauli was a small brown bird, when it comes to the distinction, so that it had distinctive black mask across its face. And it was found only in the rainforest of the eastern slopes of Haleakala volcano on the island of the Maui that is there in Hawaii. Now, it was discovered by science in 1973 and it was last seen alive on 9th of September 2004 when the final known individual it died in captivity at the Maui Bird Conservation Center that is located in Olinda. All right, so this is Pauli. Then the next of the species that we have lost is Formosan clouded leopard. Now, Formosan clouded leopard was subspecies of the clouded leopard which is found only on the island of Taiwan. And the Taiwan island, it was known historically as Formosa. And that is why the name Formosan clouded leopard. Now, it was declared extinct by the Taiwanese and the international wildlife authorities in 2013. And the status is extinct. So these are the 20 of the species that we have lost in last 200 of the years, and that is because of the human intervention. Whether it is because of the wildlife, the habitat loss, it is because of the conservation, by converting the forested lands into the agriculture spaces or into the industrial spaces. And that is the reason that we have lost these species. And this is the 6th mass extinction event that we are talking about. And ultimately, we are already in that mass extinction phase. So it is very important that when it comes to these species, they are extinct and there are the efforts or the conservation efforts that had been applied to bring back these species from the culture, the tissue culture that is there, from the gene culture that is there, but at the same time we have very limited, you can say, success rate when it comes to revival of these extinct species. Now, if you are preparing for the civil services for 2027, 2028 or for 2029, you can join the GS Foundation batch on the platform of StudyIQ IAS. Now, these batches are modeled upon the structured framework, where the SMART framework, where you get the structured classes, you get the mentorship, assessment, revision, and the test series as well. Now, for joining this, you can use the code that is BRS Live that will fetch you the maximum discount. As well as when it comes to this batch, all right, this would be a morning batch and this will be completely English batch, and the batch is starting from 22nd of June. So do not wait and enroll into the batches. And if you encounter any of the problem, then you can call us on the number that is displayed at the bottom of the screen. So that would be all. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care. Jai Hind. I'll see you in the next video. But till then, take care of yourself and do not forget to like the session. Do like the session, do comment, as well as do share this session with your friends and subscribe to our channel if you have not subscribed so that you do not miss any of the updates in the future. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care and Jai Hind.